So I'm with John Shehata from Advanced Internet, which is part of Condé Nast. And you just spoke at the News SEO session at SES New York 2010. And one thing you said that was really interesting is you've got a kind of philosophy about online news. And I was wondering, can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. We believe that online users, or news seekers as we like to call them, they think of if the news are important enough, it will find them, which means users appreciate brand, users appreciate authority, but when they search for a topic. They search for what happened yesterday or what they saw on TV 5 minutes ago, not really attached to a specific brand. And if your brand appears for that story, sure thing, if they know it, they will click it, but they really focus on the topic.
Right, and one thing you also talked about was kind of tactics for Google News optimization, and you said that fresh stories can rank higher than brand, but one thing that Google picks up on is a kind of change in editorial tactic or change in coverage of that story. Could you talk me through that?
Sure, absolutely. So there are a few tactics when it comes to news stories. One of the things is, for example, writing on a different angle. So if everyone is writing about Obama inauguration, for example, you can write about Michelle Obama's dress. Google loves to give variety on the same story. If everyone is writing about Sandra Bullock divorce, you can write about her conversation with Keanu Reeves and the advice he gave her. Or you can write about the tattooed girl. And so you need to you can attack the same story from different angles. So this is one of the tactics we use. The other thing also is every day a story shifts. So today, a murder case could be focused on the murder itself and the location, but tomorrow the focus of the story can completely shift to focus on the victims. And you need to understand how the story shifts from one day to another, so this way you become current and updated with news. Another thing also, Google News appreciate freshness. But you cannot just publish a story. So if someone broke the story before you, you have to add to the story. So Google will outrank the original source with your fresh story. So there is certain algorithms go between freshness and the original source. If you're a fresh story and you have more updates to it, you may well rank if everything else is constant.
Right. I mean, is this part of the reason why are publishers getting frustrated that fresher content can beat their kind of well-researched content? Is it easy to spam Google News by just taking the same story and kind of updating it?
Even if it was easy to spam Google News, it will not last for long. Google spiders are very strict, and if they find a news site gaming the system, they can easily remove it completely from Google News, and it will take forever to get you back there. So my advice for news organizations there, or someone who's trying to get into news, not to game the system. I see sites who use the same story and update the URL, change the content a little bit. Eventually it will be discovered, and or someone will report it.
And another tool you talked about that was only available to publishers, which I'd never heard of before, was Google Suggest for news.
Oh, no, actually it's not available for publishers. It's available for everyone.
Oh,
this
right.
is the great news, yeah. So this is a great tip, okay? So the same way you go to Google Web and type a word, so you type health, right? And then Google News will suggest the top 10 topics of health in a drop-down kind of a menu. If you go to Google News, you will get a different drop-down menu. And it's actually focused on the search terms that users will search related to news. And it gets updated. So I can't remember the exact example, but if you go to Google Web and search for health, you may find health insurance as one of the suggestions. But if you go to Google News, actually you will find healthcare, healthcare reform, healthcare vote count, and so on. Queries that you can actually optimize for Google News, not for Google Web, which is a great tool that we use as well.
That's very interesting. And my last question is just images. A lot of publishers, apart from the tabloids, aren't used to using images. They're only really working with text. and you said that images help a lot on Google News optimization. Could you talk me through
Sure.
that?
First, thanks for asking this question because this is very dear to my heart. So, images, I think the one weapon that is so easy to use and it's available to everyone, but very few news organizations do it. Images give you a higher visibility in Google News, and it's well-known fact that the eye moves from high contrast to a lower contrast. So when you're searching Google News and you see a story, you see an image, you see images first before you see the text. So if your story is there and your image is there, users will see your image. So this is number one. Number two, a lot of times your story will rank and your headline will not rank because Google News mix headlines and images from different sources. So a very popular news organization could rank very well number one, but my image ranks next to it. And guess which one of these two elements are clicked more by users? Images. So people will see the New York Times story, but the image is from CNN, and they will click the image and they will go to CNN. And Google, actually Google News tracks the click-throughs to each source. Images give you more click-throughs. So it actually helps your rankings in the future as well.
Brilliant.
Yeah.